Yo, what's up, everybody? Thank you for joining in for another episode of Boat Podcast. Today's episode 10. I can't believe I made it to 10 and I'm still alive, doing well. Today we have a really cool guest, um, homie from LA, Quinn Carson. But first, let me tell you about our the Suffers. We're releasing a Patreon. We just started it. And if you sign up right now as a member, you'll get exclusive access to archival and unreleased tracks, alternative recordings, takes on old classics, and covers of our favorite songs. You'll even get access to sheet music and stems for the rest, so you can play along or remix the tracks. But yeah, sign up now at patreon.com/the suffers. Like I said, today I have a cool friend of mine, Quinn Carson. Super cool dude, badass trombonist. Played in, and I lost count of all the bands that he's played with. He's also arranger for Drunk History on Comedy Central for all the music there. I just want to welcome y'all, my friend Quinn. What's up, dude?
Hey, what's going on, my man?
Thanks for coming on, man, and taking time out and to talk to all of us and just shoot the breeze, bro.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
So how's everything going in LA right now?
It's going well. Yeah, it's great weather, but we're all still dealing with this quarantine and everything. So taking it, trying to take it as seriously as we can now to
Yeah,
fight back and staying in touch with friends. I think it's important to stay in touch with your musician friends that you used to see out on the scene every night, and just keep talking to them. So.
yeah. And so far, everybody that all your homies, everybody's all good and everything so far.
Yeah, it's been cool. I mean, it's been a huge stressor on everybody.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just the idea of losing so much work and then to see how far it's going to go, it's
Yeah,
pretty intense.
yeah,
So,
man. It's scary, man, for sure. Like you just don't know. I try not to watch news and whatnot, and just because I'm tired of it, I'm just like, I mean, it's cool to see everybody else getting back to some of their jobs and stuff, but for musicians and like just music venues, it's gonna take a while, man. And yeah, it's scary, but the cool thing is the closer everybody, like, I feel like it'll get all the musicians together like on a different level, like of like a community where if we stick together, I think we'll be all right. You know what I mean? Help each
yeah,
other up. Yeah.
I'm hoping that staying connected to your community is that's why it's one of the reasons why you should be seeking out music this way. I've always sort of believed that when you go out and you go to a new city or you've grown up in a city, if you're a part of that music community, your success won't be directly tied to that. But in a real way, what you're left with, minus looking at how successful you were, it's like you're left with actually you built relationships in the world with people who are trying to do the same thing as you. And that's super important for being, just a regular person during this because we're very much back to being regular people. We're not rock stars anymore.
Yeah,
So.
not at all. Well, speaking of staying close to your community, where did you grow up, and what got you into trombone?
I grew up in Arkansas. So I grew up in Fort Smith, Arkansas. It's on the western side, like right on the western border of Arkansas and Oklahoma. I lived in what you'd call like a border town, and back during sort of the Wild West era, Fort Smith was one of these border towns, so that was the end of the United States, and it was the beginning of the Wild West. The territories in Oklahoma were right there and everything. So the history of my town is kind of interesting because it feels like the edge of the earth, but really we're only halfway across the United States and everything. So when I grew up, my grandmother and on my mom's side, and my mom and my dad were musical people. My dad especially had played bass in bands that played shows and toured back in the day, and he had grown up in Kansas, and there's some cities in Kansas that had like music scenes and stuff, and he had an opportunity to
Yeah,
play music and didn't go through with it. Like they had made a demo and gotten signed and sort of picked up by a manager and stuff like that. He sort of didn't go on with it, from what I'm told. So learning that there are opportunities that you have to go for and make tough decisions. That was something that was taught to me pretty young. So
That's
when
awesome.
I picked up the trombone, I thought it was going to be something that I could quit band. It was an extracurricular activity, but I really enjoyed it and got into it. And then later, my friends were all trombone players and brass players who were sitting higher up in the orchestra. So I wanted to sit next to them. So you got to practice. And then when they left, because they were older than me, I'm left up there to play first part and stuff. And just really got into it. And on the competitive side, like all region and all state was something that I could use, to get better.
Yeah.
I like sports a lot. So the idea, like, oh, here's a competition for us, was something that I gravitated towards. Other people don't necessarily, but I do. And I just used that as a way to practice. And then I ended up getting into those things, and the Berklee College of Music sent me a postcard, just I think to people who made all region and all state, those years. And they just sent us saying that they had like summer programs that you could come. And that really opened my eyes. And they told me to start a band when I went back home. And I went home and started a band in Arkansas for like my senior year of high school. And that kind of set me up to get ready to do auditions. And that's when I auditioned and went back up to Boston and moved to Boston to go to Berklee. And then, ended up at NEC, the New England Conservatory, for a master's. And that was kind of like how I got through my trombone education, I would say. It's just kind of one after another, like, picking up music because it was a positive thing in my family. And then, getting into it, and then sort of getting hooked on it, and then starting to play in a band, starting your own band was amazing. And then getting into a great college to study it was something that I wanted to do too. I wanted to go to college to learn more about the trombone, because Arkansas didn't have the best education system for music. It had a great one. I was in one of the best bands in the state, to be frank. Like, we had a big high school and a big band, big marching band, and all that stuff. But the nuances of being a music, like a music major, was sort of lost there. A lot of them would become like music teachers, and
Yeah.
some would try performance, but for the most part, there wasn't any actual deep connection with, you can learn your instrument here and play your instrument, in music elsewhere. So that was cool to get my eyes opened, at Berklee for like a summer camp, so going to band, going to summer camps, ended up getting the auditions and stuff, and sort of knocking my way there. That was the best things about it. It's just getting your eyes opened, to more stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So like, so you said your dad played bass,
Hmm.
and what got you into the trombone? Was it just like, like you just picked it because it looked cool, or like did someone did it
Well, yeah,
for you to play it?
I don't know how they did it for you, but there was one night where, like, we started in seventh grade.
Yeah.
So sixth grade year, there was an evening where, like, my parents pulled me out of a baseball game and were like, "Hey, we're not going home. We're going to the junior high you're going to next year, and you're going to try out all the instruments." I
Yeah.
don't know how you did it,
Kind of like
but
the boys. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we went to the band room, and they had all these students helping out that night, like showing people how to use these instruments. And you basically tried it, and it was kind of like they were thinking instinctually, like who did the best, like, I guess, first try,
Yeah.
in a way. So when I took a percussion test, my rhythm and my time was not something I had ever worked on before. I never really tried to do much of. So, like, I didn't score highly for drums, But when I got to the trombone, my friend who lived across the street from me, he actually was in that band program. He's a couple years older than me, and he played trombone. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, you play it. Let me try the trumpet and the tuba and the baritone and the trombone. The trombone fit the best. Also, when you think about what fits naturally, like, string players focus on that way more. Like, the size of the body that they're going to be might fit them better for playing cello or playing viola versus playing violin, just because they have all this happening.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times they get sized to instruments that way. And I think the trombone was like that for me, like just naturally how it's set. But I remember the best instrument I tried out on was the double reeded instruments, like bassoon and oboe. Like they were like, "You're a natural at this. Like you should play this." And I was like, I don't really feel like I'm gonna play bassoon and oboe.
I
But
don't know if I can get that too many girls with that instrument.
yeah,
That's cool, man. Yeah, it was kind of similar for me. Like, I played. I actually tried out on a trumpet for like this mariachi program they had,
oh
and
cool.
a friend of mine that was in the early. They had like an early like teaching thing for like students to play instruments, and he taught me how to buzz before the mariachi tryout. So I already knew how to buzz, but of course they went by they went by last name for me. So I'm Razo. So by the time they got to me, all the instruments I wanted to fucking play were gone.
Wow.
Yeah, but I got stuck on a pretty badass instrument, and so yeah, it's pretty cool, man.
How old were you when you started playing?
Sixth grade. I was like in sixth grade. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're like 10 or something?
Yeah, something like that,
Yeah.
man. Well, so that's awesome that you had some family, musicians, to kind of inspire you and get you into music and stuff. Do you remember any musicians that your parents listened to that kind of inspired you in your playing today?
Yeah, like my dad was really into rock music, and he didn't continue playing in bands like professionally
Mm-hmm.
after a while. He went back to school, went and continued college, and got a law degree after that. And so it became very much like a pastime. I remember hearing stories that he would work, and work on his cases and do stuff. And then late at night, when he was younger, before I was alive and stuff, he would like jam to records at night. And so the record collection was pretty extensive in our house. We wouldn't play it all too often, but he certainly had it there. So there's so many moments where I'd like pull records out and certainly look at them, if not play them. But yeah, the rock bands and rock stations was what he did. And I remember he taught me how to hear a bass, like in a song. Like, oh, you should listen. That's a cool bass line. I was like, what's a bass line? He's like, do you hear that thing down there? And actually to learn how to like pinpoint to listen to something specifically inside of a mix. I had never done that before. So that was, cool to learn. And he wasn't necessarily like, he couldn't read music or anything like that. So there wasn't that education side there, but just sort of the idea of like my mom and his taste for music, what they like about music,
Mm-hmm.
I think is important to me, and helping me out.
Yeah, definitely, man. Because some of that stuff you can't. I mean, yeah, you can be taught that, but it's not always taught in school. Sometimes, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially like, in schools with with programs, a program just automatically equals you're only checking out a certain amount of information and that's only available. So the music I had in band was great because on the trombone side, like I was geeking out on trying to hear great trombone players. When we were that age, it was probably just after, like after Napster, more like the LimeWire and like ShareBear age. I was definitely downloading like New York Philharmonic recordings of Joe Alessi playing.
Yeah.
So yeah, about a year into me learning, I started getting collections, and we had like an old band director who used to be a band director, and now he's sort of semi-retired, and he would come in and help out, and
Yeah.
he was a trombone player, and he would just burn us CDs. He was just a guy that had taken all of his stuff and digitized it, in the late '90s, and he just would give us these data CDs of songs and just really early burning stuff, like almost. I don't think some of them I couldn't even play on a CD player. They were data. It
Oh
was like
yeah, you
CD
have to put it in your
burned of
computer.
like songs that you had to then
Yeah.
access from your computer. So, it was pretty amazing to get opened up to like hearing good trombone players like that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was like, oh, that's what's possible on the horn, and you realize what you're putting out, you're like, oh man, I'm really far away from that.
Yeah.
So it helped me get at like, oh, if I can get a sound, I'm trying to emulate. It's almost like if you watch basketball. Like I love sports, so like if you watch basketball, a guy takes a shot who's great at shooting, like Ray Allen or Kevin Durant or Steph Curry. It'd be like seeing that trombone player and emulating that 3-point shot. How like, oh, I'm gonna shoot like them and go up and try and jump as high and they hold their elbow in, or they hold, they do something. It feels like with the way they play when I see it or when I hear it, that's sort of how I started emulating and getting better, too, with the band program just being like the time you get put on your lips, which was really important too. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah,
It's funny that I was listening to a podcast, and I believe this guy was a psychologist, sports psychologist, and he compared music and sports, and some of the things that you're talking about. It's just so
yeah,
similar. You're working out your muscles. You do. I mean, they just don't learn how to shoot like that. They do fundamentals, and they work on it, and even if they miss, they keep going and going. It's just repetition and practice, and that's one thing, because I love sports as well, but yeah, that's one thing I always see, especially when you see an athlete that's really driven. It's kind of the same thing with you see musicians doing what
mm,
they do, and you're just like, you kind of hear like the backstory of everything. Like, have you seen The Last Dance yet with Michael
oh yeah,
Jordan?
yeah, yeah.
Dude, just his
Big-
passion. I'm like, holy shit, dude, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been able to take people's athletic preparation and you can use that as confidence and to be like, oh, I can prepare musically like that. Basketball players. Speaking on that sports psychologist you talked about, I do know of a book called The Fighter's Mind and another book called The Fighter's Heart, and it's about MMA fighters, and it's written from this man Sam Sheridan, I believe. And this book, he had studied at Harvard, but he had also been like a forest firefighter, and he had gone to study Muay Thai in Thailand. He just spent his time like doing a lot of things with his body for his work. And he started studying how the brain worked a little bit. And he got into these two books talking about what the brain chemistry is like and sort of what the heart of like the mental strength of fighters are, sort of. And it's really cool because he talks about the zone, getting in the zone, and how fighters, much like performance artists, have to get in the zone. And the reason why they call it martial arts is because it's an art in the same way that performance is an art, where you work in a gym or a practice room
Yeah,
on something, and you build up these muscle memory motions that you're working on, whether they're punches or playing a scale or playing a certain thing. And then, excuse me, and then as you build up this stuff, you then get into a situation where you get into a ring with an opponent in front of a crowd with the lights on you. And now it's the question of, do you have the courage to improvise these things we practiced in a safe space, to then improvise and surprise either your opponent or surprise the crowd with a musical idea or an attack. And it's like the brain chemistry is exactly the same. And you get into that zone where you end up working like on improvising these things you've worked on in a practice situation. It's the exact same thing that happens on stage as it does in a boxing ring, or in some senses for like other sports too, like basketball. Perhaps it's pretty improv, in basketball. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm gonna have to check that book out. That's tight.
yeah, it's called The Fighter's Mind and The Fighter's Heart, and I'm pretty sure the author is Sam Sheridan.
Okay.
And it's really, yeah, it was a fun read. I read it a few years ago because I got into into mixed martial arts, just watching it and going to sports and stuff, because you would hear these stories about their personal work ethic to get them to peak at a certain time, and you're like, man, that's exactly what musicians try and do all the time, which is to work at something and to peak it for the live performance so that you can perform at your best, and to improvise in front of people, and to make things seem as if they were not, planned or seem like they were just naturally coming out. That's sort of just a wonderful thing that happens
Yeah.
in music. So
Yeah. Speaking of improvising, it's kind of like that time when what was it when I was playing we were playing in Virginia, and you were driving through, and I was able to get you on
yes,
the
that was the best day of my life,
dude,
practically. So
that was
this
so
was
tight.
this was Lock-In
Yeah,
Festival.
there you go, Lock In. Shout out Lock In, man. That festival is awesome, by the way.
It's a I've heard all about it, and for years I'd seen all the bands I liked playing it. And I was on the road with Badfish, the tribute to Sublime, and we were on an off day, and you were playing. I think this was a Sunday show, if I remember, or something like that.
Yeah.
There's just, and I remember the night before I had talked to this band called Big Something, and these cats had played shows with me and other bands, and they host a festival down in North Carolina called the Big What, and they invited me to like, hey man, if you can get to this festival, you should play with us on our set. We're playing on the main stage at Lock-In, and I was like, dude, if I can make it, I will. And we had an off day with Badfish, but they had already sent in the guest list spots, and you guys had already, I had found out that you were also going to be there, and so I called you and I was like, hey man, like this band hit me up about playing. They play like shortly after you guys play on Sunday, and I would love to like come hang out and do it. But if there's any strings you could pull, and you were like, yeah, let me look and see what I can do. And you came back the next morning with like, hey, I got you on the list. You and the band's tour manager, Chris for Badfish. He was driving. We used two vans in that band. So one van was heading towards the gig, and then me and Chris took the other van. We drove also towards the next gig, but the idea is we could veer off and go to Virginia. And so we woke up that morning, and you had sent me a message like, hey, we got you on the guest list. I called my tour manager. He's on vacation in Europe, but he called the festival in Virginia and got you guys putting your names on the list. So you're good to go. And then, I had to talk him in like, hey, we got tickets now. Let's go. And, I think that night it was, you guys played, and who was it? Keller Williams played, and Big Something played, and then
DJ Logic was there too, I
yeah,
believe.
DJ Logic sat in with Big Something, and so it was all these big bands. And Susan Tedeschi and
Yeah, for sure.
Derek Trucks were playing that night, and then it was it was John Mayer and the Grateful Dead,
That's right.
Dead and Co. So
Yeah.
yeah, Dead and Co was headlining that stage, and so we were both playing that afternoon. But yeah, we tried driving there, and we pulled in right as you guys were finishing your set. So I missed you almost
It's all good.
completely. I don't think I even got to see you because you guys had to bounce too.
Yeah,
Uh,
we didn't stay too long. We had early flights in the morning. I think it was like one of those. Sometimes we fly in, play, and then we bounce because some of the guys they have kids and stuff, and so we try to get in, get out, get on with some of our lives and stuff like that. Even though it's man,
as
it's
you
fun to
should.
chill and hang out and stuff like that.
Well,
We
that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to get there early to see you guys. But instead, we get there right as Big Something is taking the stage. And, I just have a pass from you. I don't even have like the backstage pass or anything, but I got my horn on me and I talk my way through the back gate. This guy's like, man, do you know where you're going? And I was like, I don't know. It's that big stage right there. Like, I'm headed there. That's where I'm going. And then I get to the back, and it's Lock-In uses a rotating stage.
yeah.
And the coolest thing about that is that one band is finishing and the other band's setting up, and basically when it's time to go, it's like they just rotate. And so I slide into third base, with like seconds to go, start breaking out my pedals, because I use pedals, and so I get my pedal board out and then get the mic and set it up and get my ins and outs going, and then the thing starts to move, and
Yeah.
I was, oh man, we're going, and I'm not playing on the first song. I'm like, you need to get off the stage. So the stage starts rotating, and I just dive off the stage, and I'm like, oh, where's my trombone? And I look for my case, and the case is like wide open. My trombone's
Oh
gone.
shoot.
And
Oh
I was
wow.
like, what happened? Except this is Lock-In. It's like one of the most professional ones we got.
Yeah.
And one of the crew guys knew about brass instruments and how to like put them together. And so he
Oh
just took my
sweet.
horn out and put everything together perfectly. It was on the trombone stand, like on stage. And I'm like, no, wait, I need it. Like, I need it so I can like touch some notes before I play. I was like, go get that. And so like they're still rotating. He grabs it and brings it to me. And then when I finally get to sit in, yeah, DJ Logic was there too, but I had no idea. And so Big Something's like, hey, we're gonna bring our friend out. Everybody get a big round of applause, and I start walking out there because it's this stage, and then all of a sudden, right with me, like side by side, is DJ Logic, and they're like, everybody, DJ Logic, and everybody goes, whoa, and I was just like, whoa, this. I was like, I didn't even see you there, and so then I'm like, and our buddy Quinn. And so then, we're out there, and that crowd's like 10 or 15,000 people. So it was incredible. And like, um, there was just so many cool moments that day to just the rush of like, can this happen? The fact that you did me the biggest solid in the world, and then I get to go play music on in a place like that with everybody, and
You crush it, man.
make that happen. Ah, thanks, dude. I appreciate it. That band's really good. Big Something is crazy. So
Yeah, dude.
they're a bunch of really good dudes, and so yeah, check them out.
Cool, man. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. So I started following you a long time ago on Instagram. Every now and then you'll see like other like fellow trombone players and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and then so I've been following you for a while, and so we were playing in Massachusetts outside of Boston for some festival,
The
and
Levitate Festival, yeah.
Levitate, yeah,
Sponsored by that clothing brand Life is Good. It's a super nice, like family friendly festival. It's
yeah.
great.
It was really nice, and I wish we could have stayed too, but it was the last day of our tour, and we after we played, we ate, and we drove straight back to Houston, like
Oh, driving,
2 hours or something like that. I don't remember.
huh? Hmm.
It was brutal, but it was funny because that's when I had met you for the first time in person, and I was just like, "Wait, you're Quinn, right?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I just admire your playing, and you played in some pretty cool bands. And what band were you playing with that day?"
Yeah, that day I would have been with the Elevators.
Okay, cool.
I don't know if you've checked them out, but the Elevators are like a reggae band out of Boston. They used to open up for a band I was touring with for like 5 years called Spiritual Res, and that's how I met those guys. And they're just a bunch of great dudes. Jackson writes amazing songs. He's really good at writing his lyrics and the melodies and stuff. So they're really fun to listen to. So that day I was playing with them and this other band Quadrafunk, and they had won like the local battle of the bands, so they were there. So I was there on a local level playing with some bands, and then you guys were on tour. But yeah, you like just came right up to me like, "Hey, I think I know you," and I was like, "Oh shit!" So it's always surprising, but it's crazy. Like the internet has connected me to so many awesome brass players, and there's been moments in time where I've been even really low, and then something crazy will happen. Like a friend of mine will call me, and he'll say, "Hey, I'm in a bar talking with a guy, and he's saying his favorite trombone players that he watches on the internet, is like you and these guys." And then I was just like, it's amazing that that happens.
Yeah, dude.
It's just like what the hell what's going on? So it's
Technology, man.
super humble. Yeah, yeah. But I'm happy when people come up and recognize me too, because it's the same way on me. I mean, there's tons of musicians that I follow,
Yeah,
and watch what they're doing, and when I see them out in the world, like I take it as a moment to like say, hey, I've seen you, and I watch your stuff, and I really respect what you're doing, and more importantly, I'm like happy to finally get to meet you, because it's like I feel like you get to know people so much and you never met them, so getting to meet them finally is always great.
yeah,
You know, talk shop or something is always cool if you get a chance.
oh yeah, definitely. Sometimes, yeah, and when you're on tour, like I've run into a lot of other trombonists and other musicians that are super cool, and I've got to talk to, and I definitely will remember the time we met, and you were super tight, man, and that's why I had to have you on the podcast, bro.
I mean, I'm happy to talk about trombone. I don't always get to talk about trombone. I mean, personally, I've been in a horn section, my whole life whenever I've played in bands, So like when you're doing any type of media, you're talking about the band, you're talking about, songs in particular, or you're talking about an album. But to get to do a podcast and talk about, the trombone and the fact that I love sports and I always think about sports analogies for music, like you're going to find that out as we continue the podcast. But yeah, it's just like I love to get to talk about it. So that's awesome.
One thing I'm curious about, a couple things, your setup for your sound effects. Like, how did that come about? How were you messing with that and whatnot? And how did you bring it onto like a live like setting, like stage?
Well, the first thing was talking to people that know about brass and like brass effects, if we want to call them that, or like just regular effects boards, like So your first connection that's easy is probably a guitar player in your band. Like people that buy pedals already, they're going to have a lot of information about how pedals work for them and for their particular instruments and how they are set up. So with that understood, you have to take everybody's information with a grain of salt because everybody's instruments are always different and everybody plays different. You might be looking for something totally different than what they have.
Yeah.
So when I learned that, I then started looking for brass players that did it, and like there's got to be someone that's trying to educate them. And that's when I found out about horn effects. And so hornfx.com, or maybe it's even horn-fx.com. But those guys, Dave and Aaron, have been really building up a book of horn effects stuff. And so, they've just been a complete, I guess, it's been a while since I've gotten to talk to them, but they've been like a great resource when I started. Of getting to talk with them and say, hey, what are you doing here? What should I do here? Or all that stuff. And basically, if you can go to their website, you can see their reviews for pedals, how they apply to horn players. And then they also started a PDF book that you can purchase. And it really talks about everything from how does electricity work for the way pedals work to how you can apply your horn playing to pedals and then to create the chains and what all the steps are. So with all that in mind, you're just trying to learn all about it while checking out cool sounds. 15 years ago, I remember hearing Robin Eubanks play with a wah pedal on an album where he has like a Jimi Hendrix sort of cover that he puts, not even a cover, but like a tribute song. And I think it's like Blues for Jimmy or something. And it's him with a wah pedal. And it's just wonderful what he plays because he's playing amazing music with an effect, Yeah. So the effect just takes it to another level. It wasn't like the effect was the thing that made it so good. It was his timing and his note choices and the things that he was doing there. But I mean, so 15 years go by and now we're here, and I learned about stuff like that. And then the number one thing that started me going was learning okay, my first purchase is got to be like a big moment. I want to buy something that's really going to change my sound, because you can buy pedals that help the quality of your sound or help the equation that you're doing, like the start of a pedal board to the middle of a pedal board to the end of a pedal board. There's sort of three areas you can deal with. And the outer areas are very much like you don't hear a difference. They're not really effects. The effects happen in the middle area. So I decided to buy a lot of stuff here at the beginning, maybe 2 pedals or 3 pedals I got. And then I found the cheaper, more streamlined ways to just get started on the beginning phase. I've got the pedals that make my sound totally different than how it ever sounded before. And then the ending, I also found the route, the quickest way out. Yeah. But you can actually spend money on pedals at the end and pedals at the beginning too. One would be a preamp at the beginning. At the end could be, pedals like compressors, or they could be, preamps, or not preamps, but excuse me. Man, it's been so long since we're gigging. DIs. Buying specific DIs or something. I ended up buying a preamp from Eventide, so it's a loop. So the house goes into the preamp, and then the preamp goes, gets the microphone signal, and that microphone signal gets the effects loop as well. So there's now a loop going on where it all comes back to that box. Yeah. But for the longest time, I bought something that was $17. It's just an impedance converter, because the idea is that microphone signal comes at a different impedance than guitar pedals come at, high and low. And so one's high, one's low. And so the converter just brings them to the right electrical level so that you get a proper signal. With that in mind, if you bought, a microphone cable that goes into a microphone but then becomes a guitar cable on the end, like a 1/4 inch, sometimes those don't convert the impedance, so you get a really wild signal. Yeah. So buying that converter for $17, easily breakable, bought that multiple times, because it would just get broken. That thing will break. That's why it's $17. But it would convert the electricity, and now all of a sudden I've got a microphone going into a pedal, which is great. So then we were cooking after that, and And so that was sort of how I got into it. And the band I was in at the time, Badfish, was down. They were like, yeah, go for it. The lead singer used to be a horn player in that band. So he knew about everything, and he was super supportive. So that was important to get off the ground, with having a project that you could explore it in.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it became like buying everything and investing more time and money into doing it. And I sent you a sneak peek video. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it, but I've got a music video where I just do a solo trombone performance with my pedals that I'm really excited about releasing. So that's kind of like the phase I've gotten into with it, where I'm trying to perform with it.
Yeah, that's badass, man. I've always wanted to. I'm big into reggae and dub, and I've always wanted to do something like that live. And when the Suffers we
So,
first started as a band, we were like a reggae cover band. We started out, and there was times where we would cover certain songs that I thought would sound dope with some like badass like echo and just
yeah.
reverb and shit. And but never got around to play with it, and but definitely always been interested in to try it. I mean, there's not a lot of horn players that do it, or that I've seen, and the people I've seen have done it like really well, like yourself. And I think it's a game changer for sure. But yeah, I definitely want to look into that, and I'll definitely link your video up in the description so everybody else that's listening can check it out. Because I did check it a little bit of it out, and it's pretty awesome, man.
Oh yeah, I had that's yeah. Well, that was a sneak peek. I haven't released it yet, so
Okay,
that'll be
okay.
like I've never released music myself, so that's going to be the first piece that I get to release for me.
Hmm.
It's going to be this solo trombone piece. I made it and shot it out in Boston. I used to live in Boston because of Berkeley and NEC, and then toured with some bands for a while there. And then I came back, and a buddy of mine started a studio called Revival House, and Pat Hanlon, um, basically has helped me make this one, and I have a second song too. So I've got two little songs that are all trombone, like a trombone's world, that I'm really proud of, and I'm just sort of working on getting them out myself, which will be cool. So finally release some music for my own.
Nice, man. Yeah, that's so you have a lot of time to do that right now, obviously, right?
Yes and no.
Oh, okay.
I personally had time. The very beginning of quarantine was crazy, and it was important for everybody to focus on what was, going to keep them going. And for me, that was, working on those music videos and working on editing them and getting like the things to the right place. Like I'm editing one myself, and then Pat has been doing passes on the other. So the idea that someone's helping me really on the vision for some of these is just great. So there was time spent there, and we're excited at where it's at in that video. But um, later, as the quarantine went on, I got a gig with the film scoring team that I work with out here in LA, and we picked up a show. So then you do a show, and then I started saying yes and trying to do remote recording gigs for friends and for clients, and hitting up clients I'd worked with before,
Hmm.
and then finding new ones and finding places to put my information out there so that people could kind of find it, and just I did that, and so those two things, like when you take on more responsibilities that aren't your own thing, like you realize
Yeah.
that time is there. So yeah, we got to get done through all that stuff. We finished the show. The show wrapped this month, and then I am getting through some other things, and then I also have my project and a project with my friend Jake. So it's kind of been the big three things I've been trying to focus on would be like my new stuff, the music I make with my friend Jake Knox, and then the show that I'm working on that was with these film scores was like a big moment, to
Nice.
do that.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
that's awesome, man. And like, so some of the projects that you've been working on remotely are, I believe, well, you're doing Drunk History. Are you done with that one?
Yeah, so Drunk History was like seasonal. So we did a season of Drunk History last year, and that was really awesome to do that. We did 16 episodes with Dan Gross. He's the film scorer, who was worked with Drunk History since season one. And when I moved out here to LA, I had met him on the internet of all things and made contact with him. We had plans for me to work on season five, and then when those plans fell through, we were able to pick it up for season six and some commercials and stuff before that. So it was great to meet him and to move here and do that. And so when he called me earlier this year, he was trying to build his team for this new show he got, which is on Netflix. It's a kids show called "Listen to Your Vegetables and Eat Your Parents," and it's produced by Higher Ground Productions, and that's the production company that Michelle Obama and Barack Obama started, and they produced the Michelle Obama documentary on Netflix and everything. So she stars, in a sense, she acts in this kids show. She's in the kids show, and it's a kids show about nutrition and stuff. So when I got the opportunity to jump on that was like my main focus for several months. And in that case, I would record remotely. Trombone and trumpet, and I would basically replace the brass instruments that they use in the MIDI orchestra. So Dan composes his orchestra cues, and we make rock cues with Eric Goisman, who's another composer on the team, and we just make all kinds of genres. And then I was added to the team to use brass as a way to like make it more lively, to liven up the feel of these MIDI orchestras. Mm-hmm. And so we use a string player. This year we hired a new string player and a flute player. And so I was the remote recording coordinator. I was the person who managed them and their technical difficulties recording or the scheduling for how they needed to be working on our episodes. Because it was like a whole season you make of Netflix shows, and they'll release them as a bundle. So as they got hired, I took the role on of like building them up, because there's certain standards you have to meet for recording music to video, making sure your settings are right, getting the right, sort of quality control going, and just creating a workflow that works so that when they send you material, you can load it on your computer properly, and then you can record with the proper levels, with the proper settings, so that when you send that back in a box to them, they can drop it right into their project, and it opens up safely and quickly and in the right place, which was really important, just to be able to make sure all of our stuff that we work on at our house lines up with the final product at their house, especially while we're in quarantine. So that was incredible to like kind of work on this orchestra thing, and then help record for them. They would give me projects to arrange horn parts, there was a Motown song. So for instance, they built the song and had the lyrics and the recording and the vocal, and then they had to re-record all of the rhythm section. They were sent the stuff, and they wanted to redo the rhythm section. And so then let's add horns and strings. So they got sent to me to write the horns, got sent to another person to write the strings. And then when I finished my horns, I sent them on to the string player for them to really make sure they were following, sort of like the hierarchy of how those kind of Motown songs are built. And, we just created this full-blown produced sort of Motown song, as like everybody sort of got to work on it in their own way, which was cool. And then there's other instances where I was lucky enough, they just gave me music to compose for the show. I got to do a couple cues for Drunk History, and in this case with the Listen to Your Vegetables show, I got to compose some stuff too, which was wild, just to go from, I grew up in Arkansas and I used to watch shows on Comedy Central, to now you're doing a show for Comedy Central, and now you're getting to record music for Netflix, and now all of a sudden you're composing music for like, this show that's going to be on Netflix, and it's a kids thing, and it's just like, I never thought I would get to be a scorer, get to be a film scorer or something. So
dude, that's awesome, man. That's really cool. That's how the magic happens, ladies and gents. Like, for real, that's crazy. See, that's a cool thing, is like no one ever sees the backside, of how it's made. You know what I mean? And
yes,
I think that's badass. Like how you explained it and everything. It's great.
Well, yeah, if you really start from the beginning, it's there was like an alumni Facebook group for me and my friends from college, Jake and Nicole. They're both married. They saw a post on that Facebook page of like, Dan is looking for musicians to audition for his remote orchestra. And I always imagine, TV and movies, it's made with studio orchestras, full studio orchestras. So it's kind of like, I'd assume that, I'm not going to be getting those studio gigs anytime soon, because it takes a long time to work your way into those studio things, and you have to specifically go for it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to be the studio trombone player necessarily, right then and there. But when I was like learning that I knew how to record music and learning that they needed a person to do that remotely, I was like, that could be a gig I could do. But it only happened because my friends commented my name, in the comments, like, hey, who were looking for people. And so people who trust you were like, he would be great for this, and they put my name down. So that's how I found out about it. And then I went and got the gig. And then now it's kind of about building up trust. It feels like the last couple of weeks I've been talking with people on the phone, and it's like, man, you get these different roles because people trust you to do stuff. They see what you do when you do this, and now they're going to see what you do when you do that. And I think it only happens from building up like great relationships that are real, and doing your job, and really trying to be a positive effort in the team, and trying to, sort of the classic "that's not my job" statement kind of is against that theory, I think. So you're always trying to find a way to, like, if it's not my job, is it something that like I can help someone else accomplish, or is this a job that needs to be created? Like the remote recording coordinator job didn't exist, but now it's existing in this new world we're living in, because there needs to coordinate stuff. Yeah.
So, so you're also I saw that you're also like doing like a class or online class to like show people how to do remote recording and stuff as well.
Yeah. I've been teaching a few lessons, or excuse me, I've this year I've taught a few lessons online, like while we've been in quarantine. But yeah, when I moved to LA, I gave lessons to like producers, and singers, and people who made like their own beats and stuff, and released their own music on their own. And we would go in and start doing things like theory lessons. And then at some point it was kind of, a mix of, introductory recording stuff. And then since we've gotten in quarantine, a lot of brass players and some, a singer or two have hit me up, and we've gotten to talk about the recording process at home, and how to best like organize yourself and record music. And then, if they're playing brass, we're really talking about how to produce stuff too, like how to create sounds, how to create feels from a section of horns, or how to pan, all that stuff. So yeah, it's been cool to give those lessons, because it's not really like a trombone lesson, but you're certainly like talking about horns the whole time, but how to like best represent your sound, from the place we're at right now. So.
Exactly. How did you learn about like studio recording? Is that something that you learned in school, or is it something that you kind of like learned on the fly and adapted to?
Yeah. Like when I went to school, I started school as a trombone player, and then a couple years in, I added a major. And at Berkeley, they have this major called Contemporary Writing and Production, and that's where you start taking on 5 or 6 different areas, like composition, arranging. What would be another one, like mixing, and sort of the idea of recording and creating demo tracks with MIDI. So each of those areas could be its own major. Like composition versus arranging could be different, and then the same could be for recording and mixing. Those are all certain areas and classes and rules of thought. So we were introduced to that because that major was basically how to work on your computer, to work in the box, as they call it. So I don't really work a lot with analog gear, and I don't really know how to run analog gear like in the studio, but in the box is what I've learned. So I worked in Pro Tools and Digital Performer and Logic, and obviously like other DAWs I've touched and seen, but I learned those at college, and then started touring and stuff. And when I got the opportunity to join this film scoring team, that was kind of when I woke it back up and really studied more, and used my own intuition to like find the right places to look.
Mm-hmm.
Asking like Jake, who I'm, we make music together. He's like a huge source for like pointing me in the right direction, if not telling me exactly like what he does and what other people in the industry are doing, just so you can see how you can start to emulate that in your own. Um, for us as horn players, a lot of it's not mixing, but it could be the quality of the recording that we're getting or the kind of recording that we're doing for people.
Yeah.
Everything from recording one trombone track to recording a double of it, and then like just those ideas, like certain genres of music use doubles, others don't. Like learning those tools were things that I learned after school. But if I hadn't taken that major, I wouldn't have been able to take that first job with Dan, and wouldn't have done any recording. Like I used to record remotely from home before, with artists and bands that I met on the road. But really, I had to sort of sit back down and like get into it, because now you want to end up making music that is acceptable for like the standard for like TV, like the sound quality you get in your room has got to be that good. So that's sort of like the goal.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. The other reason why I ask you is because Suffers we're recording our third album, or trying to at least, and it's halfway through. But because of the quarantine, and kind of a lot of us, we all don't want to be in the studio at the same time. There's
Sure.
taking safety measures and whatnot, and we threw around the idea of possibly recording our parts from home. So we're all trying to like possibly get like a setup. Everybody have like their own setup to record at home. But I don't know if we're really gonna, do it or not. But yeah, it's definitely it's definitely in the equation, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's sort of when you're doing remote recording, what I've found out, it's the idea of you're trying to create a nice environment that is going to be, in general, as basic an environment as possible, so that other people's basic environments that they bring in creates, as even a sound as we can get, for sure. And like, it just takes learning to do stuff, but it's doable. And more importantly, if it's something you guys really want to do, I think it's something that you guys should try, because this type of work is not going away. It just is the main focus right now. I do know of people who have made entire, albums. Like Jake and I are producing, like we have an EP that's going to be entirely produced remotely. Like he made it at his area and I made the music over here at mine. And so like it's completely just, that's a completely remote album to say the least. And I think that, we found a workflow where like I'm doing some tweaking on my end so that when he gets it, he can do and treat it like it's, solid audio. So you just have to find those workflows with the right people, and especially anybody that knows information about mixing, that might be the best. I would say that like to make music with Jake is great because he takes on such a big role in us getting the right sounds before we ever send it to get it mixed and mastered. And I think that's really important to do, to like sort of try to create as much sort of filtering on your own before you guys get there. Be like, we can clean it up as best we can before we give it off to somebody. I always seem to think that like the best mixes that I've seen on those tutorials and stuff are it feels like, these people send them what they're going for, so if you're going for a sound on the horn, then you should try and get that sound out of your recording at your house, and testing out different things, different techniques is important. Maybe it's shoving your horn into your closet where all the clothes are so you can get that sound you're looking for. Or maybe it's like, actually, we both have really cool living rooms, so what if we recorded with a little bit bigger room? Or you guys both have big entryways and that has an echo to it, so what if we tried doing like some takes in here and some takes in there? It's like you could spend your whole time, like fooling around with stuff. A great mixer was Al Schmidt, and he doesn't use EQs. He actually uses mic placement, like putting it on different areas like that to move the microphone around to catch different type parts of the EQ. And that is something that we can all do as horn players at the beginning, is just to realize that if you put the mic in front of you, at a certain distance and a certain height on a certain part of your horn at a certain angle, then yeah, you're going to change the way it sounds differently. So if you take time to test all those out and be like, oh, what do I like when I play really hard? Do I like it better when I back off the mic, or do I like it better when I turn the mic down? Like, you know, what are we doing that we like about capturing the sound? Because that's what we're trying to kind of capture really good performances and keep it as even as possible, so that when you send it to a mixer, they're going to do things like making it sound like everybody's in the same room, and that's going to be their job. But for your job, it's kind of like grabbing some nice signal, you know. So,
Dude, that's awesome,
and
man.
using your ear. Yeah, it's all ear training, you know, not hearing intervals, but hearing like quality of sound.
Yeah.
And my ears aren't even that trained. You know, there's so many people that mix music for a living, and they've trained their ears and taken care of them too,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to hear those subtleties. And they set their rooms up perfectly to eat up the right sound in the right places. You know, there's a lot of things you can do, and to help your ear and train it. You know, it just takes time.
Yeah.
But also to like sort of realize that if this is what you think is what everybody's going to be doing in the future, then you should start to open yourself up to that kind of thing. You know?
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Definitely, it's
and
good to learn new things.
yeah. It goes a long way, I think. And again, it opens up the opportunity. Like I, you know, can record on my own, so they were okay with me recording on my own. But then the idea to start producing entire, you know, cues or film cues, like score cues of these songs on my side, was trust from the fact that we're just in a good workflow and I know how to make my tracks and produce good sounding stuff for them, so they can trust me to try producing more sounds. And then,
Yeah.
you know, that's your opportunity. So,
That's badass, man. That's cool.
mm-hmm.
What is the project with you and Jake? What's the name of it again?
So Jake Knox, Knox. Jake and I went to school at Berkeley, and I was one of his groomsmen in his wedding. And so Jake and I have gone back for a while, and he's been a really great person, to know and to have in my corner, which is great. You know, it's important to have people in your corner. When I decided to move to LA, you know, he was one of the top people who were excited for me to come here, which is important to feel that from people, you know. And so that was a really great instance to definitely get to see him more and sleep on his couch for a little while and stuff like that. We started making music, and he had been a music director for artists and had been producing music on his own for probably, you know, the last 6 7 years, I would suggest. And he was also, you know, just working, and he has his own studio at his house.
Badass.
And so he had an idea of making music and wanted to you know, add me along on the ride. And he's really spearheaded making these songs, and we've been really proud of them. And I end up putting a lot of horns on them, and we affect them, and we're just trying to use the horns in as imaginative a ways that we can to like support these songs, like pop music, you know.
Yeah.
So it's cool to live in that world and to produce music on that level, and it gives me a chance to kind of use my kind of have like an idea about playing where I want to hear like this sort of world, like this more trombone brass group sound too. I love hearing amazing horn sections, but I also grew up loving New Orleans music, and that was kind of the first music I played, um, with my band and stuff. And so that sound of like a brass band, that freedom, is something I wanted to put on recordings a little bit. And so that means stacking more horns than normal.
Yeah.
So that was sort of my move, to explore that more, and Jake was into it, and so we've kind of done that. And happy to say that we have a song that you guys can download for free through the podcast. Since you're having me on, Jake had the idea of putting up a song for you guys to have. We just released a song today, to some people privately, giving them access to it, but they don't. But you know, this is something we wanted to give you guys to download and keep for free, and it's a new song called Los Angeles. And if you go to our website, it's Jake dash jake-knox.com, and then / the name of your podcast, Bonetown. So jake-knox.com / Bonetown. And you can put up the link if you'd like in like the YouTube and stuff. I figure it'll stay up for a while. And if you go there and go to this website, it's part of our website we've made for you guys where you can see and hear this new song that we just released privately, and then you can download it. So it's got like a download code or a download button that you can click there and take it. So there you go. That's sort of like we've got that, and we've got like an EP we're releasing this year. And our biggest news is we worked on a song with this artist named Bipolar Sunshine, and he's like a rapper from Britain, and he was in this group called Kid British, and he's worked on some songs with like DJ Snake, and he wrote some songs with Beyonce for The Lion King, and like he did a song with Jake and I, and that one we're super excited to have him featured on it. And so that's going to be released in about a month. And so just getting around to announcing that. But that's like the most exciting news is to get this guy Bipolar Sunshine on the track. And that was a big win for us. So we're excited.
Nice, man. I can't wait to hear it too.
Yeah. So it's like, it's amazing to be on songs that like sound like they're on the radio. You're just like, whoa, play trombone. Like, this is great. So.
Yeah, I'll definitely put that in the description on YouTube and in the comments for sure. So y'all can download that free song and the YouTube video as well, man. Man, that's dude, that's badass. I can't wait. It's gonna be awesome.
It could be cool. That's the goal.
Well, Quinn, I really appreciate you coming on, man. This was a good hang, and I'm glad to see you're doing well. And how's everything during quarantine? I saw that you do some little cool rad playing in the streets in LA.
Yes, yeah, that was cool. That was amazing. I saw someone play a horn on like social media. They like played their horn outside their window or something like that at 8 p.m. because we were like the essential workers who work like every 8 p.m. like we applaud for them. And it was amazing to do. I saw it on the internet. Oh, there's some person that kind of gave me some honks on the horn. And then that same night, my roommate, Sasha, she also brought it up. It's like, hey, it would be cool if you played your horn at 8 p.m. And I thought about it. And I live down the street from another amazing brass player, Jay Jennings, or Jay Yennings. Actually, I can't tell because all of a sudden now I don't know.
Shout out Jay.
His Instagram Jay Yennings, but Jay, we've been friends for a while. We worked together with Gregory Porter, this like amazing singer, and I swear we only worked together because we just lived on the same street, and that's how you get your name into the pot sometimes. But Jay calls me, and I had texted him. I was like, hey, do you want to like maybe get together and play some horns at 8 p.m. And so that one of the nights, like early on during quarantine, we got down and Sasha and my other roommate brought tambourines. And so the four of us each night for the next 40 days, like played a tune for a couple minutes at 8 p.m. kind of like to celebrate and bring some energy to the neighborhood. And that was really cool because, out here in LA, it's such a big city. You see your neighbors, you get to know your really close neighbors, but it was awesome to like do something for the neighborhood in the sense that more and more people, got to see you and you got to talk to them while you're walking home, or they come out and would watch from their porches. And that was great just to kind of give them a little minute of time. And then, honestly, sadly, like when George Floyd was murdered and those first protests started in LA, they were called riots and they decided to put a curfew. And that was the last night that we did that, was because the curfew got slammed down right at 8 p.m. And like, the vibe was weird. I texted Jay. I was like, hey, do you want to play? And I decided to go down there with Devin and see if Jay showed up. But, he didn't show up that night. And so it was just kind of like, this was not cool. And so it's kind of a sad ending to that thing. And, the curfew gets lifted a few days later and we didn't start it back up, but, after we took time and spent time at the protests and demonstrations as people and as musicians at some point. Used our instruments a little bit, and that was great to do. But then later, to the moral, like to the moral, to finish this story up in a good positive way, is now we're in this sort of phase of like this social distancing attempt. Jay called his trio. He's got a band where it's like drums and bass and himself, and he uses like other saxophone players or pianists and stuff, and has like a jazz band. And Jay plays for like Snarky Puppy and gigantic country artists and stuff, and he's just an amazing jazz player. Like his facility and his knowledge is supreme. And so he's got a band, like a jazz band, in earnest here in LA. And so he called him out, and we had him out on my patio. I have like a rooftop sort of patio, and we played at sunset a couple times, and we're gonna play tonight actually.
Nice.
So so it's cool to kind of like sit distanced and get to jam, as like a quartet. Him and trumpet and trombone, drums and bass, and then Sasha's sang with us because Sasha's a singer. So it's been cool, to get to make music. The neighborhood gets to hear it. That's been a positive part. And most importantly, on a selfish level, it is a chance for us to express ourselves. So you can't deny that. Like that's something.
Not at all, man. It's great, man. I can't wait to play with all the guys again and get to go back on tour and seeing everybody's faces. Because man, it's pretty bummer just being at home. I can't.
What do your managers and people say? What do the booking agents say right now? What's the news headline?
I don't even know. Like I see a lot of bands and everything. Putting everything like rescheduling things to the summer for next year. So.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'm assuming summer 2021. So, but it gives us a chance to kind of like create more music, finish our record, and I mean, shoot, we have like enough music for a fourth record. So, we might be able to do 2 records in 1 year. I don't know.
Yeah. Or just start making songs and putting them out. Whatever the.
Yeah, man.
It's these ideas are so different. So.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, man, thank you, Quinn, again for coming on and chatting with me, dude. It is good to catch up, and like I said, it's good to see that you're doing well and like doing well in life and in musical world and everything. And but yeah,
I mean,
it's good to catch up, man.
It's great to see you. We never get more than 10 minutes behind the back of a stage. Someday we will have all the time in the world. I can't wait for that time.
Yes, sir.
So.
All right.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and before I let you go, there's some people that are on Facebook saying what's up. Harley Carson.
Oh yeah.
Says.
That's my sister.
Matt Belrose. There's no better band than Spiritual Rez, and no better horn man than Quinn.
Oh man, Matt's a great guy. I appreciate the support from him.
Theada.
Oh, Teada. Yeah, she's that's one of my cousins. On half of my family's Native American, so
okay, cool.
She's from my Oklahoma family. She's great.
Well, hi everybody. Hi Quinn's family.
Awesome. Well, I hope your fam's doing good.
Yeah, everybody's doing good, man, and I hope yours is doing well. I mean, everybody's just staying put, keeping safe as possible, and doing the best we can to get this over with, man.
I tell you what. I heard a crazy thing. You need to talk to the people in Texas. I heard that I was talking to my friend who lives in Texas, and he's like, "Hey, my wife and I got to go to her friend's wedding because she got engaged and she wants to get married in November in Florida." And I was like, "That is the craziest stuff I've heard in a minute."
Man.
So
let me tell you about some of these people in Texas. Oh,
they're like,
get me started, bro.
Florida, November. Oh man.
But hopefully we'll get this shit. I'm gonna have to go and talk to everybody in town, bro. I want to get back on the road, and everybody needs to wear their freaking masks so we can do that.
It's gonna be a long road for us to get back, and so we do need to do that. Keep doing the right things to us too. Making the right decisions. So.
Well, all right, Quinn. I appreciate you, brother. Until next time, thank you for everything.
I appreciate it, Razzo. You guys have a great day.
All right. You You too, man. Later. All right, everybody. That was my homie Quinn. Thank you again for everybody coming out, checking out the Bonetown podcast. Um, I just want to say thank you for everybody that tuned in. Thanks again to Quinn. That was super awesome. Right now, like I said earlier in the beginning of the show, the Suffers Do, we're on Patreon now. So if you sign up at patreon.com/the Suffers to become a member today, you'll get access to unreleased tracks, alternative recordings, new takes on old tracks, covers of some of our favorite songs, access to sheet music and stems. So if you want to play along to some of the songs or remix some of our tracks, you can. So yeah, patreon.com/the Suffers. Again, thank you again. And I hope everybody stays well. Thank you to all the frontline workers out there in the hospitals, keeping everybody safe. We very much appreciate all the work you've done for everybody in Houston and everywhere in the world. So, on that note, thank you again, and tune in next time.